StraightallDay.com.
Tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is it is impossible to exist in discomfort. Before we get into this, let me remind everybody that I send out a text message every single day, guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point. I call it daily motivation. You can get this message straight to your phone every single day. You also have an option to get a weekly motivation that we send out every Monday called the Monday Motivation. We'll give you your options and tell you what you can do to get either or both by going to your phone right now and text me at my number, which is 305-384-6894. Just text me at that number. It's free to join my text community, and we'll tell you all your options once you get in. Secondly, workonyourgameuniversity.com. That is where I do all my coaching. If you would like to be coached directly by me, that is the only place that I do it. It's the only place that I work with anybody directly. If you want to work with me directly, you've been thinking about it, you want to, or you weren't even sure if I did, and now you know, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link, along with my number to get into my text community for free, are both down below in the description. All that out the way, let's get into today's topic, which is it is impossible to exist in discomfort. I will give credit to Andrew Tate, who planted the seed for this idea. I heard him say this in one of those montage videos they made of him. He has so much material out there, and he's so known that people use his clips for these montage videos, and I heard him say that, and I said, that's a really good point. And I'm going to spread that seed. I'm going to grow that seed into a tree because this point made a whole lot of sense to me. So as usual, I borrowed the point from him. I'm going to flesh this out to my own creation, as I am known to do for today's masterclass. So let's get right into it. I don't need to get too much intro to this one. Point number one, topic once again is it is impossible to exist in discomfort. And what this means, what does this point mean? It means that where you are right now, any of us, where any of us is, where we exist right now in life, is a space in which we are comfortable. Every one of us is existing in a space in which we are comfortable. Because if the space in which you exist right now was truly uncomfortable for you, you wouldn't be able to rest, eat, or sleep under such conditions. Think about that. It makes sense, doesn't it? Even if you have some aspects of your life that you aren't happy with, that are not ideal, that you want them to be better, that you would like them to change. And I bet that every single one of us has things that fit that description, things that you're not happy with, you want them to get better, you want them to change, you need them to be fixed in some way, shape, or form, right? We all need this. There's something in us that has allowed us to grow comfortable with the situation anyway, because if it was really uncomfortable for us, meaning uncomfortable to the point that like this is just, we can't accept it, we would do something and change that situation immediately. We wouldn't be able to rest until we did. You wouldn't be able to sit and listen to me because you'd be out doing something about that circumstance. See, if it was truly uncomfortable, you wouldn't be able to do anything under that condition. You would immediately go do something to get out of that situation. You would keep doing things until that situation was altered. So think of the analogy of the frog inside of boiling water. If you drop a frog in the water that's already hot, boiling, the frog will immediately jump out because it's uncomfortable. But if you were to put the frog in some room temperature water and slowly bring the water to a boil, the frog will sit there and allow itself to be cooked to death. Why? Because the discomfort kind of crept up on the frog so slowly that the frog didn't notice that the water was starting to get hotter and hotter and hotter. This is the same thing that happens to human beings. And this is an accurate analogy for how many human beings die, whether literally or metaphorically. We slowly and gradually watch things get worse in our lives, and we don't even realize it until it's too late to do anything about it. So what do I mean by that? Slowly and gradually watching things get worse. That's like anybody listening to me right now. Think of a circumstance in your life that you have known for at least 6 months you needed to do something about, but you have not yet enacted the change. Just think about what it is. You don't have to say it out loud. Just think about it. Everyone in here, everyone listening to me has one. Something that has been at least 6 months and you know you need to do something, but you haven't done it yet. Okay. Now, 6 months ago, you knew about the situation. At least 6 months ago. Some of you might be 6 years. But let's just say at least 6 months ago, you knew about it. Now today, you still know about it. You are 6 months older. You have 6 months less of life remaining to live. Life has moved forward by 6 months. Everything and everyone around you has moved forward by 6 months, have aged, at least let's just say it has aged 6 months. Some have moved forward, some have not. But you have 6 months left. You have six fewer months remaining on your life clock. We can 100% agree on that. So even if you feel like you are not in a quote unquote worse position, you are, because you have lost 6 months of life to live. Like, you still got the same problem. So if for no other reason, you're in a worse situation. All right. So if your challenge was your weight and you want to lose some weight, okay, now you're 6 months older and you still got a weight problem. Okay, that's worse. That's a worse situation than it was 6 months ago, because you're 6 months older, which means your body is less capable of dealing with it than it was 6 months ago. 6 months less capable. You have a financial issue. You got 6 months less to do something about that financial issue. Thus, six fewer months to enjoy a positive financial situation rather than the one that you're in right now, because 6 months have gone by. So you got worse. All right, even if you want to rationalize it that it's not that bad, again, the fact that you rationalize that it's not that bad is the exact point. The fact that you're finding a way and a method to make it feel comfortable when it shouldn't be comfortable, that's the exact reason why you're not changing the situation. Everybody follow me. You're the frog sitting in boiling water. You don't even realize that the water is boiling until you die. That's the boiling water, in case any of you didn't catch it. Point number two. Today's topic, once again, is it is impossible to exist in discomfort. Here's the fix for this. Is there, because maybe you're wondering, is there something I can do about this? Because maybe you're agreeing with me, you're understanding. What can I do about the circumstance? Well, there it definitely is something you can do. Let me tell you what. We have to catch ourselves rationalizing things that we know we don't want, but our minds have tricked us into accepting because we've allowed them to exist for so long. Let me say that again. That was a long sentence. We have to catch ourselves rationalizing things that we know we don't want. All right, you know you don't want something. Do not rationalize it. Do not tell yourself the story that it's okay because. All right, it's okay because, well, I used to be broke. So the fact that I'm making 150K this year when my goal was 250K, that's okay, because it was a time when I was only making 20K. No, see, that's a rationalization. That's bullshit. That's a rationalization. Did everybody catch that? Don't do that. All right. If you say, all right, I used to weigh 300 pounds and my goal was to get to 200 pounds, and now I'm 240 pounds and I'm not close to getting to 200, but hey, at least I'm 60 pounds down from the 300. That's a rationalization. That's bullshit. The goal was 200. The goal wasn't 240. The goal was 200. See, that's the rationalization. And many of us are really good at this kind of rationalization. I even see people doing this rationalization for other people as if that makes it okay. Remember when the Milwaukee Bucks, NBA basketball team, they won the 2021 NBA championship. 2022, they lost in the playoffs, I believe, in the second round of the playoffs. You got to win 4 rounds to win the championship. So 2021, they won 4 rounds. 2022, they won 1 round and they lost in the second round. Then 2023, they lost in the first round to the Miami Heat, and they lost in 5 games. They lost 4 games to 1. In the first round, they were number one seed in the Eastern Conference. And someone asked the Milwaukee Bucks at the time, number one player, he still is as of this recording, a guy named Giannis Antetokounmpo, also known as the Greek Freak. They asked him, is this season a disappointment being that you lost in the first round? And Giannis kind of got annoyed with the reporter by saying, no, it's not a disappointment or not a failure. I think it was failure was the word they said. Because, every year is a process. You don't win the championship. You don't win the championship every year. And it was some kind of question that he asked, like, do you win? I can't remember what he asked the reporter. Like, do you win the Pulitzer Prize every year? No, it was something like that. I can't remember exactly what he asked the guy as a kind of a clap back to what the reporter was asking him. But he explained, he went on this long diatribe to explain that the season was not a failure. It was all a bullshit cope rationalization. It was damn sure it was a failure. This guy is one of the best players in the NBA. He's a 2-time MVP. He's won Defensive Player of the Year. They were the number one seed, meaning they had the best record in the Eastern Conference, and they were playing against a team that barely made the playoffs, the Miami Heat. In 2023, excuse me, the Miami Heat barely made the playoffs. And the Miami Heat went and beat them 4 times in 5 games. The number one seed, the team that just won the championship 2 years ago with a guy who is, if you have listed all the players on both teams in one group, he's the best player out of everybody. That was lost in 5 games, and he wanted to rationalize and cope that it wasn't a failure. It was a damn failure. And unfortunately, he's the best player on the team. He's rationalizing that it wasn't a failure. And I like Giannis. He's a player that I think is one of the best in the league. I don't think he has a title as the best in the league anymore. He had it for about a year, but he lost it. And that little speech that he gave, that there were a bunch of people applauding him the day after that speech. I said, okay, this is not becoming of the best player in the league. As the best player in the league expects to win every game, and when you don't win, it's a failure. Not winning is a failure. Not winning should be the exception. You don't rationalize not winning, even though you could lose a whole bunch of games. You don't rationalize it. You say, all right, we got to do something about this. This ain't okay. He rationalized it. Now, that doesn't mean he ain't going to come out and try to win this upcoming NBA season, which by the time you hear this, maybe has already started or is close to starting. But you got to catch yourself rationalizing. You got to catch yourself in the bullshit. Don't rationalize things just to make yourself feel good. You are better off telling yourself the truth about things, even if it makes you extremely uncomfortable, because that will move you to do something. If you rationalize it and tell yourself that it's okay, then what happens is you slowly get used to that thing being the thing, and you become the frog sitting in the water that's slowly creeping up to a boil. Everybody understand this? Because your mind will trick you to accepting things that you allow to exist and things that you rationalize as okay. Let me tell you why this happens. You know why this happens? The reason we do this, the reason human beings do this, the reason the frog boils in the water, and we're not comparing ourselves to frogs. I'm just using the boiling water analogy here. We have much more complex brains than frogs, and much more what's the word? We have much more control over our actions. The word is escaping me. Much more control over our actions than a frog does. But the reason why someone like Giannis, who's in the top 1% in the world of performers at what he does, still rationalize things is because eliminating the unacceptable takes effort and work. And human beings are naturally lazy. Where have you heard that before? Oh, I'll tell you right here on the show. 3 truths about human beings. People don't think, they don't read, and they're lazy. And it's easier to rationalize something than to do the mental work it takes to figure out how to fix it. This is why people rationalize. Even top 1% performers at their jobs who just lost in front of everybody, they will rationalize. Why? Because it takes more effort to do something about it than it does to make it seem like it's okay. And this guy saying, well, it's a process. No, it's not a process. Y'all won the championship 2 years ago. Then you lost in the second round. Then you lost in the first round. Yeah, that's a process of going fucking backwards. If that's the process you're talking about, Giannis, that's what y'all did. Y'all went backwards. Y'all went from champions to second round to first round. What's going to happen next year? Miss the playoffs? Yeah, if that's the process you're talking about. So what he was saying made no sense whatsoever, but nobody really challenged him on it. I mean, the reporter asked the question. He kind of tried to push on the question, but after Giannis gave his little TED talk about why losing in the first round was okay, nobody pushed the envelope anymore. And a bunch of people on social media the next day went and applauded him for that bullshit participation trophy speech that he gave. It was complete nonsense. This happens because we get used to rationalizing things. People are naturally lazy. I just told you this. 3 truths about people. Don't think, don't read, and are lazy. So again, you do the opposite of the things that I tell you most people do, you will be successful. So anytime I tell you what most people do the opposite of that, and that's your formula for success. When you realize that something is less than ideal in your life, and everyone listening to me, you have at least one thing in your life that is less than ideal. You got 2 choices. Would you like to know what they are? Okay, one is you can put forth the effort to do something about that circumstance and change it to your liking. Or B, you can craft a story in your mind that makes the situation seem not that bad or even okay and something that you can live with for now. Which one takes less effort? I'm asking which one will you do? Which one takes less effort? It takes less effort to craft a story in your mind that makes it seem okay, even though it's not okay. This is what most people do. Again, the one where you can just craft a story. Oh, it's not that bad. It's a process. We won the championship, then we lost the second round, we lost in the first round. Hey, it's a process. We're not supposed to win the championship every year. Is it a failure if you don't win the championship? No, it's not a failure. Everybody doesn't always win the championship. Bullshit. You already won the championship. You're the best player in the league. You're making who knows how much money every year. You're an MVP multiple times. Y'all just lost in the first round as a number 1 seed. How is that not a failure? That's a failure. Had I been on the Milwaukee Bucks team, me and Giannis probably would have had a disagreement because I would have been on the podium right there with him and said, no, this, I would have let him finish speaking, let him say what he wants to say. I would have said, this is a failure. Now, we're a championship team. We came in here with championship expectations. We're the number one seed. We lost to the 8 seed in 5 games. This is a failure. I don't care what anybody says. This is a failure. Our goal is to win a championship. Anything short of a championship is a failure, and we need to fix it. Period. And that would have been the end of it. Maybe I would have got traded off the team for saying it, but I would have said it. The whole point is you can't rationalize things that are irrational for you. And you got to decide what's irrational for you. What is acceptable and what's not acceptable for you? You have to decide. What is acceptable versus what is not acceptable for you? Episode 2146, your unacceptable list. Episode 2122, how to identify and eliminate the unacceptable. What is unacceptable for you? What are your standards? We talked about standards in many episodes of this show. Episode 2668, what standards are you willing to set? Episode 2097, standards still matter. Episode 1974, standards, the enemy of mediocrity. Episode 1331, never lower the bar of standards. This is one that if I knew Giannis, I would have sent him that episode after I would have said in front of him that, yes, this was a failure, regardless of what he just said. See, the one where we craft the story to make everything seem okay, that's the easier thing to do. And this is what most human beings do. Craft the story, because if you don't craft the story and you say, this is completely unacceptable, this is complete bullshit, guess what now you have required yourself to do? You have just signed yourself up to have to do work to fix the circumstance. And work is work. All right, there's a reason why it's work, because it takes energy, it takes effort, and most people don't want to do it. You got it? You only had to get up from the couch to rationalize and tell yourself some bullshit story. This is why most people spend their entire lives telling themselves things are okay when they're not okay, until those lies catch up to them and they become the frog in the boiling water. Or here's the other thing that happens to people, and here's the tragedy. See, the tragedy is not when you become the frog in the boiling water, because now you're dead, and now there's no expectations and nothing really to talk about because you're dead, you're gone. The real tragedy, you want to know what the real tragedy is? And I have this happen. I've had this happen many times, and it's tragic. And I actually am disappointed when it happens. Can I tell you what it is? Here's what happened. Let me lay out the scenario for you. First of all, let me tell you what it is, then I'll lay out the scenario. What it is when people finally realize that all their rationalization was some nonsense, and they get to the point like where their brain is like, oh shit, I actually should do something about this. They come face to face with basically who they are versus who they expected to be. They realize that there's a big contrast between the two, a big distinction, as we talked about in the previous episode. And they decide it's not worth it to fix it. And they just decide, no, I'm just going to stay right here, and I'm just okay with this. And all those hopes and dreams, they just throw those away and forget about it. And they take it with them to the graveyard, most valuable real estate on the planet. It's a damn shame, but it's a common truth. So let me give you an example. I've had this happen many times, so I'm going to hold myself accountable here, and I'll tell you how. So I have a conversation with somebody, they're interested in something like working with me or being coached or something like that. And we have a conversation. They tell me about their situation, where they're at, where they want to go, what they think might be in their way. We have a conversation. I find out, I go a little bit deeper into where they're at, and I figured that I could possibly help them. I tell them that I can help you. Here's why. We can do this, this, this. I tell them exactly how I can help them. I lay out a whole plan. I make them an offer. For whatever reason, they turn down my offer, whether it's not right now, whether it's I got something else going on, whether it's they don't have the money, whatever the situation is, and they turn it down. And they say, no, I still like your stuff. I still get your texts. I still listen to your podcast. I still watch your videos. I still read your emails, whatever it is. I'm still in your world. I still like your stuff. I just am not going to do this thing right now for whatever reason. Doesn't matter what the reason is. And I tell them, okay, I'll follow up with you. I'll stay in touch with you. I stay in touch with them. They do stay in the world. They still listen to the podcast. They still get the text. They still do all the stuff. They didn't lie. And I follow up with them. Sometime around, let's say somewhere 6 to 12 months from our initial conversation, I reach back out to this person. Sometimes it could be a year. It could be multiple years from when I originally spoke to this person. I get in touch with them and I find out where they're at, what they're doing. And this has happened a few times that I do get in touch with them. Now, sometimes I reach back out to them and they just don't respond. They just don't make themselves available because they just don't want to talk to me for whatever reason. But then when I do get in touch with them, here's what I often get. that the person has changed their mind about the goals that they had. They no longer want to lose that weight. They no longer want to make that money. They no longer want to launch that business, at least according to what they're saying to me. And I can only go off of what they said. They no longer have the goal anymore. The goal is completely gone. And they have rationalized that the situation that they were in when we first talked and that they are still in today is now okay. That's what's happened. They have just rationalized that the situation is okay because maybe they have considered what it would take to fix it. Maybe they've considered that, hey, maybe it's not that bad because they've been in it so long that they just get used to it. And this is a tragedy. And the reason why this is a tragedy and the reason why I'm holding myself accountable by even telling you this is because I always take that as, what did I not do? What did I not say? What did I miss in a conversation with this person that did not get them over the threshold of actually doing something to reach their goals? That now they're going to end up taking all those hopes, dreams, and potential with them to the graveyard. They're going to die on it at the same level that they're at right now. And I got to take responsibility for that because I had an opportunity in getting on a call with them, having a conversation with them. I had an opportunity to move them somewhere that they needed to move themselves. But see, me as a salesperson, and I am a salesperson, it is my job to get them to do something for themselves that they couldn't get themselves to do for themselves. And if I fail to do that, then I got to take accountability for that. I don't look at that as, oh, well, you win some, you lose some. No, fuck that. If I'm talking to somebody gets on a call with me, you know what we're getting on the call for. You know what it is that I'm doing, and you know it's going to cost something. All right, that's not a secret. Any of you hear me talk about Work on Your Game University? In case any of you didn't know, it ain't free. Okay, in case that was a secret to anybody, it ain't a secret. Okay, anybody gets on a call with me, they know what the deal is. So if I'm unable to move them to do something for themselves that they need to do for themselves, and then they end up doing nothing, which most of the time is what happens. Every once in a while, somebody comes to me, they don't come working with me, but they go work with somebody else's. Maybe they got a recommendation, maybe they had a friend or something like that. That's maybe 1 out of every 50, 2% of people, they go to someone else other than me. That actually, I it depends on the situation. Sometimes I hold myself accountable for that. Sometimes I say, okay, this person didn't really know me. All right, that happens. But the people who come here and they still listen to the show, they still get my text, they still watch me on YouTube, they don't do anything. They just keep doing the same thing they were doing before our conversation even happened, and nothing has changed. And then they end up rationalizing the situation because they've been in it so long that it starts to feel okay and normal, and I can live with this. They get to that mindset, I can live with this. I got to hold myself accountable for that because that's a tragedy. All that talent, all that potential, all what could have been is going to die with them because they're not going to do anything. I wasn't able to get them over the threshold. And as a salesperson, it's my job to get you over the threshold. If I don't get you over the threshold, I failed as a salesperson. That's my responsibility. And it's a damn shame for me and for them, but it's a common truth. This happens to people all the time. Any of you who works in any type of sales space, especially in the personal development space, forget about professional development, but the personal development and the professional development space, you know this is the case. You know that this happens. Any of you ever work in network marketing and built a team, you know what I'm talking about. Any of you ever worked as a coach or a consultant, you know what I'm talking about. This happens all the time. That we're unable to help people help themselves. And we got to take ownership of that as salespeople because that's our job. Moving on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is it is impossible to exist in discomfort. Number 3. One of my favorite books called The 50th Laws, written by Robert Greene and 50 Cent. And I believe it's chapter number, either chapter 9 or chapter 10. There's only 10 chapters in the book. It's called Confront Your Mortality. And this point is articulated through the story of 50 Cent himself. Most of the book is written by Robert Greene. Almost all the book is written by Robert Greene, but it's 50's story told through Robert Greene's writing. And 50 explains that after getting shot, well, Robert Greene explains that after 50 got shot, he survived his shooting. He realized that he could get shot again. Like literally, he could get shot again because he was the kind of life he was living. Someone was looking to intentionally kill him. He realized he could get shot again, and that life could end for any person at any time. He realized, damn, I could just be dead that quick. The way I almost died, I could die that fast. Like I came out my house and somebody came up and shot me. The whole episode of him getting shot took what, 30 seconds? that quick, everything I've been working on, all these plans I got, all these dreams I got for the future, all go away that fast. And he realized that he needed to develop a sense of urgency for the life that he did have, knowing that it could end again that quickly. And because he had been through a life threatening situation, 50 Cent had a real reason to believe this. What I just explained to you is logical, right? That any of us could die anytime. Like this afternoon, today, I'm recording this is 4:18 p.m. Eastern time as I'm recording right now. Around 5 o'clock today, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to walk. And when I'm outside walking, who knows? There could be some strange, deranged person who just decides next person I see, I'm going to kill him. And he can pull out a gun and shoot me. I could be crossing the street and somebody could run a red light drunk and hit me. I could, who knows? I could eat some food that I didn't prepare and there could be some poison in it and it'd be over that fast. Logically, these things are all true. Can we agree? Logically, everything I just said is true. Now, 50, difference with 50 and me and my logical explanation that I just gave you is that he had not only the logical explanation, but an emotional connection to this understanding because he had literally been shot and he almost died and he was living a type of life where getting shot was a normal thing. And this led to 50 operating with a extremely high sense of urgency from that point forward. And that led to his, his first rap album and all of that. And the fact that all you know who 50 Cent is, even though you may not even listen to rap music. Most of us, on the other hand, have never been shot one time, let alone 9 times. Thus, we may logically agree with everything that I said earlier that, yes, you could logically die anytime, every day, anything you do, you could die. We all agree with that, right? You get on airplanes, you get in cars, you eat food that you don't even know who made it. All right, we could die any day. All right, any of us could. Logically, we get that, but we don't have the emotional connection because we ain't been shot 9 times. We ain't looked down the barrel of a gun. And because we don't have that emotional connection to the reality of death, we thus don't have such a strong sense of urgency embedded within us the way 50 Cent did, even though we all agree that we would probably benefit from such energy, albeit without the bullets. Now we would all love to have a sense of urgency without having to get shot first, right? We all agree to that, but we don't have it because we haven't faced that life or death situation. See, here's the thing we got to keep in mind. This whole game ends for everybody. For all of us, there will come a day where there is no more tomorrow. There is no more next time. There's no more getting to it later. And here's a reminder to all of you that you don't get to choose what day that is unless you're committing suicide. Unless you commit suicide, you don't get to choose what day there's no more tomorrows. So you might think you get up until your grandmother, she's 95 years old. So you might think you got that much time. You're 50, your grandmother's 95, so you think you got 45 years. But is that guaranteed? Of course not. See, you don't know when it could be over. It could be over today. It could be over next week. It could be over in 6 months. What would you do if you knew that was the case? See, the better we can force ourselves to accept this emotionally, the higher the likelihood that we will actually get things done instead of putting them off. And that's really the point here is putting ourselves in the discomfort of understanding that our time is short. We get a lot more done than what we're getting done right now. And many of us are just moving way too slow, way too lazy, and putting things off as if we have the luxury of time, which you do not. All that said, let's recap today's class. It says it's impossible to exist in discomfort. Again, hat tip to Andrew Tate, a clip that I saw of him saying this that planted the seed for the idea. Number one, what this means is that where you are, where we all are, is the space that we're comfortable with. Something that's truly uncomfortable, you cannot rest, eat, or sleep under such conditions. You would immediately do something to get out of the situation. Unfortunately, most of us are the frog sitting in boiling water, not even realizing that we're cooking to our death. Number two, the fix is we got to catch ourselves rationalizing things that we know we don't want, but our minds are tricking us into accepting if allowed to exist for long enough. This is people rationalizing and coming up with some kind of coping story that makes a situation that is not okay seem okay. Whereas if you went the other direction and said this is completely not okay, it would create enough discomfort within us that we must do something to fix it, which is the energy that all of us operate best under. Challenge is many of us never put ourselves in that situation because we'd rather tell ourselves a story that makes us feel good and look good to whoever, even though feeling not so good and looking not so good would actually move us to the kind of action that we need to have to get things done in life. And number three, in the 50th law, Robert Greene and 50 Cent talk about confronting your mortality, the fact that one day you will die, and all of us understand this logically, yet few of us have embraced it emotionally. This is the reason why we move so slow. This is the reason why we put things off till later. This is the reason why we never operate with a sense of urgency. Is the main reason why most of you never get shit done. And you keep talking about the things that you want to do. Some of you have been writing a book for 3 years. How the hell is it taking you 3 years to write a book in your own life story? You got to do some research. What the hell is the holdup? The holdup is you have no urgency. And until you get a sense of urgency, you're going to keep living in that mediocrity, and eventually your time is going to run out, and all that value, all that potential, all that woulda, coulda, shoulda, going right with you to the graveyard. A damn shame, but the truth. All that said, text me so you can get my daily motivation straight to your phone every day. My number is 305-384-6894. Secondly, workonyourgameuniversity.com. All right, y'all know what it is. You want to work with me directly, you ready to get out of that bullshit coping and telling yourself that everything is okay and rationalization to actually get some things done, like now, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com and let's stop bullshit. Work on your game. Dre all